right after the August 15, 1945, I do remember people were very much elated. Yes. And then in the Sunday school, I heard repeatedly how some of the Korean patriots had the arms struggles in Manchuria. I think I was maybe 7 or 8 at that time. And so that was the beginning of that turmoil, frightening, terrorizing, instant after instant in southern part of Korea. And then there was a young people who fled north of 38th parallel, came down, and they carried clubs, and they went around town, and then beat the people up. I saw the people hit and head and blood, bleeding, and they took the people to a certain place and beat them up and say that they are communists. And my grandfather was taken by them and beaten terribly. So because we were sympathizers of the independent national, government. They called Northwestern Youth 서북 청년단. They were protected by the U.S. Military government. Because 1945 through 48, southern part of Korea was ruled by the U.S. military government. And so my uncle, the immediate younger brother of my father, was teaching Yonsei University, in those days, Yeonhee University, the English professor there. And so finally, he was fired by his own teacher, George Pak Nakjun, who was the president of Yeonhee College. Because my uncle was, his idea was different. He was sympathizer of the communism and socialism. And then at the beginning of 6th grade, June 25th, 1950, war broke out. I do remember the bombing started in July. And we lived in the Bugayondong, that is a little bit hilly area. We were able to look down when the U.S. bomber came and bombing the Yongsan, that's the area, Yongsan Station, depot, and bombing. Then our glass windows were, not completely shattering, but, shaken awfully. And it was, awful. And then I do remember middle of July, I think, even I don't know why, even I remember that day. July 17, my uncle, the professor, the married uncle, said, in the morning, I go to Pyongyang today. He carried a small bag and he walked out. That was the last time I saw him. He didn't say anything. I go to Pyongyang today. That's all I remember. At the time, I didn't know. Just because he was a communist or Marxist, he just went to the north. Yeah. And then at the end of the month, toward the end of the month, bombing was severe, getting worse. So my fourth uncle and I walked to my hometown, Haengsong, Gangwon-do, Haengsong. We walked 3 days. Yeah, it was very scary. Yeah. And then that in one of those days, the U.S. jet fighter came and began to burn down my hometown. It was about 3 miles away from my hometown, the town. And we were able to see the flaming going up, the smoke. I think that was a napalm bombing, completely flattened, burned down the town. And then again, right after Christmas, my grandma was shocked. She was under the seizure of the shock because 3 sons disappeared. And especially 2 younger ones on their way, retrieving, they might have been killed. And so she was concerned about it. Out of the shock, she died. And then I think January 2nd, we had to go to the south because another, counterattack, so the southern troops were withdrawing. So we went to the south in the winter. Yeah, it was horrible, horrible winter. Yeah. My family, my uncles, all gone. We don't know where they are. My father died. So I think I was under stress all the time. So because of that, I decided in my junior year, at 11th grade year, decided to go become a preacher who can impact the lives of the people. So my 17 years of parish ministry in Ohio, and then 1987, I had an opportunity to work as a staff in one of the United Methodist Churches agencies, and I worked 16 years until my retirement in 2003. So because of my experience working as a staff in churches, general agencies, I have been able to put more energy for this issue of a Korean division. First of all, many Korean people are still, in my perception, are still haunted by the unfortunate past. Fear, distrust, suspicion, and all kinds. So the church leaders began to wonder why. So my answer was, okay, Korean people went through such a difficult time. So their trauma, they never had a chance to heal such wounds inflicted upon them. They had to suppress those frightened, experience of the past, because if they began to talk about it, they could be they could be suppressed again. Pastors, college professors, and graduate students like me came together at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, and we talked about our situation as Korean American Christians at that time. So at that Thanksgiving weekend of 1967, we formed so-called Association of Korean Christian Scholars in North America. And then finally, in 1986 on, they began to deal with separated families issues and reunification issues on. Then they began to invite North Korean Christians over here each summer. So that's how that's how my eyes were opened for the healing and reconciliation of Koreans. I visited North Korea first. And then at that visit, I met my 2 uncles, my 2 younger uncles, one who was born in 1929, and the 4th one was 1931. Both of them alive and married and had their families. So I met them since 1950, 60, 70, 80. So 39 years later, I reunited with my father's two younger brothers. We just hugged and cried. Yeah. So that's how I began to do those things, And then through the church, I really, especially I just wanted to see that Christian leaders to be more concerned about this very, very abnormal, unnatural, divided conditions of their homeland, Korean Peninsula. Yeah, because we are using one language, we have very similar, traditions, and our division and ideological difference is only 70 years. But we do have, 5,000 years of life together. Same cultures, same customs, and same languages. And, so we really need to zero in and uplift these kind of issues.